Have you ever been on a team or in an organization that you knew had much more potential, but just couldn't get off the plateau? You couldn't get to the next level. And as you start to look around and analyze who's in charge, you realize that the person in charge, maybe it's you, can't get past what's always worked. Or maybe they just can't get past what they were taught as they were coming up through the ranks. We're going to talk through that today and specifically get into how a fixed mindset affects a team versus how a growth mindset affects a team. But we're going to do it with the help of an executive who's actually been through the ebbs and flows of both. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm Dewayne and founder and president of Pioneer IQ. I hope over the course of the next several minutes, you're able to pick something up that helps you understand how to more effectively lead your team and inspire them to do something great every single day versus come in and collecting a paycheck. All of us have more potential, but what gets in our way is typically ourselves. So we're in the middle of a new series that we're calling 4 Critical Mindset Shifts for Leading in 2024. And ultimately what we're getting into here is that we've realized that companies, consultants, leaders are buying people and solutions and software and reading books all day long. And what we've uncovered is that there are 4 critical mindsets that are preventing all these leaders, maybe you, from actually being able to implement what you're learning from these consultants' books or different insights that you're gathering. If you or someone on your team truly wants to better engage people and maximize their potential and get the most out of their team, I'm borderline begging you to get them to a boot camp. At these boot camps, I guarantee you 3 things are going to happen. Number 1, you and the people that you bring from your team are going to come together as a team and gel more so than any other time. Number 2, you're going to help them make life decisions about who they are, what they're great at, and what they could become at home and on your team and at work. And then thirdly, you're going to be able to see into what you could become as a leader, what it means to lead in 2024, and how to maximize the potential of the people around you, both at home and at work. Take the next steps. Go to our website, pioneerq.com. We've got these all across the country, and sign up. We're going to work through mindset shift today, which is all about growth or fixed mindset. And in order to do that, I'm bringing in a great friend of mine, a guy that I truly believe in and have had a lot of war wounds with, but it's a guy that's truly experiencing the ebbs and flows of what growth and fixed mindset is. Shane Wade. Shane, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, Dewayne. Good to be here.
So to give everybody a little bit of insight, Shane, you and I go way back. Currently, right now, you're playing a really critical role with STV. Now, truth is, I think the known title for Shane is Deputy Get Done. Is that on a business card somewhere?
I did my boss gave me a business card that said DGSD as a gift in the transition, just because I'm known for being the guy that just you point at a hill and you tell me what the body count is, and I go take the hill.
Yeah, right. And then honestly, that's part of why I wanted to talk this topic through with you, because there are some men and women that we refer to as wartime leaders, and there are some that are peacetime leaders. And the difference is people, when they go to war, some people step up and lead better, and some people don't. You're certainly a wartime leader, and that's something that I've always respected and loved about you. So I really do appreciate you joining us for the PioneerCast here on this particular subject. Okay, so just to continue to tee you up a little bit, we talked a little bit about your position and what you're doing now with STV. Before we get into about STV, like who is Shane? Like, what's Shane all about? Like, I know you and love you, but what's Shane all about? Not just the guy at STV, but what's Shane Wade really about?
So I'm really about leading and removing obstacles for people. I feel like I'm at my best whenever I'm helping a team or my family or my community gets from somewhere that they are to somewhere that they're going to be. And so every aspect of my life, whether it's church or community volunteering, I've served on volunteer boards. Every aspect of that is really about filling in the gaps where people maybe won't say the hard things or do the hard things. So that's what my passion is. I'm a follower of Christ, and so I believe that mandates that I show up different than other people, that I am that I'm more tolerant, that I'm more loving, and that I consider all things. And people don't really care what you know until they know that you care. And so that's the only way I know how to show up.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And Shane, you and your family are in DFW, obviously, right? What area DFW again?
We live in Allen, Texas. So
Okay. One
uh,
hell of a big football stadium in Allen, Texas for high
known
school.
known for high school football. A little bit of a slump lately, but known for high school football. Yes.
Love it. Love it. Well, Shane, so just for, people, a little bit of a transparency background, you and I have worked on a couple of big assignments together. This is obviously a really big one. By the way, I'm really proud of what you're doing with STV and TMR, the Texas Mountain region at STV. It's a really interesting story, which I'm going to have you tell her in a second, but we go all the way back to working on some cool companies and cool projects together. Previously, I think, we were obviously working with John Lamb at Lambstar, really cool, firm there in DFW that does some great work, in the civil space. Got to work together there. And then you got recruited over to STV at the TMR, division, previously CPNY, but it's been fun working with you here. And what's really cool is I was looking back at your track record over the time that us being able to work together. And, it's really cool because you have big increases, big, large gains, and net promoter score with employees and net promoter score with clients and revenue, profit, and all that. But I think what I've enjoyed the most about working with you is, you actually lead me pretty well. You do a good job of keeping our team on track, and here we are, being the ones that you've asked to help you. So I appreciate that about you. So Shane, just tee us up a little bit. Help us understand, like, who is STV? Probably not everybody knows. I mean, obviously STV is a large organization. Like, what's STV about? What's TMR's role in STV, and how does that work? Just kind of fill us in on that organization real quick.
STV is a national firm based out of the New York area. Probably most famous, or the thing that as we went into the integration with them, the thing that I realized the space that they were most known for is the transit space. They've done a lot of work in the Northeast around the transit space and building facilities and infrastructure. STV is working to grow a national footprint that focuses on making communities better, focusing on the transportation and infrastructure space, construction management and program space, transit, aviation. We have buildings and facilities group and the water practice. So really working to make local leadership empowered, but also bring the resources of a national firm to bear, because they realize local relationships matter. And so that's one of the things about the current strategy that we're going through that I find very intriguing, is that leadership is local, because projects and infrastructure are local and relationships are local. So many times companies try to make it formulaic and try to make it about, whiz bang gizmos or whatever. And the reality of it is you make communities better by local relationships, local leaderships, and empowering that leadership to bring resources to bear to the clients. And I really feel like that's part of the strategic vision that STV is bringing overall into the market.
Yeah, just this is a little bit off script, but you were previously with the company CPNY, which was the company that was acquired.
Yes.
And I got to jump in and work with your leadership team there a couple years before the acquisition, and then was walking with you through the acquisition. And now, my job is to help you integrate those two organizations, which is a monster challenge. And frankly, it's probably the biggest underserved area of our industry right now. It's where most acquisitions fall and go into a disaster mode, which is integrating the two cultures. But the one thing that I really love about how the STV executive team has handled this is they have, and I've heard them say this a couple times, like, all they really care about is making sure that no matter what, you guys are serving the local market and continuing to stay personally connected to it, not just from a project perspective, but they really seem to preach that stay connected in your community because we're a part of the community. They're not just there swinging and winning projects. So that's my interpretation. Is that true?
Yeah, and if I talk about the proof in that, CPNY as a as a good, strong regional company was built around partners for a better quality of life. STV, as our go forward vision is, as we're one company now, their vision is making communities better. And I look at that and I say, you know what, it's the same thing, partners making communities better. And so the reality of the process of the acquisition, as we were going through that, we had been in a period of pretty rapid growth, and we had a very strong culture, and we're very ingrained in the local market. And STV came to us and offered to take 1 + 1 and make 3. And that's sort of a tagline that a lot of people say in M&A, but I really saw the proof and the pudding of that as we moved forward into the earnout years and completing the acquisition. It is really about making that and empowering that local leadership and providing more resources. And we've been able to, in the 2.5 years since the acquisition, we've been able to do almost $20 million worth of work in this region that we wouldn't have been able to have done without partners. And every year that number is growing more and more and more as a result of being able to bring national resources into our local market. Functionally, what the Texas Mountain region is the CPNY acquisition that is now just folded in and working with the entire team of STV. And so I think it's a real success story of they bought us for a market. Obviously, we're a hot market, but they also bought us for culture and our leadership team. And they've stood behind us and they've provided us resources. And we just had to get out of our own way and learn to grow and learn to talk about things outside of a region and maybe specific service areas that we were comfortable with. A lot, our primary flywheels were in the transportation market, road and bridge, and field services and water. And so now we've added, large, complex CM jobs, program work, and transit to the mix. And we've been able to bring all of those tools into this region in order to serve our local communities better.
Yeah, man, that I appreciate that tee up. That really kind of gives everybody the context of kind of what you're dealing with and the magnitude and scope of your scenario. I really appreciate that tee up. So I'm going to transition now into to the topic. And I got to tell you, I really appreciate your willingness to have this conversation. At the end of the day, the only reason why we do the PioneerCast is for leaders to hear from other leaders who are going through tough things. And I'm really thankful that you're willing to kind of get vulnerable for a second and just talk through the journey, because what you just talked us through very quickly was somewhat of a painful process, for you personally and for other people, on the team as you made that progress, and started moving those two things forward. So here's why I thought this was such a great interview for this topic. What we're running into all the time is that, especially now that we're 30-40%, project volume out over our skis as an industry, everyone is spread really thin. And what we're realizing is that we're working with a lot of leaders who see the potential in their team or their organization, but they're so spread thin that they kind of grip everything and hunker down and play not to lose as their tide's rising and as they're getting stretched thin, right? And what happens in that mindset is you get to a fixed perspective where you don't want to screw it up. So you just go back to what's always worked or what you thought's always worked, or you go back to what your boss did 25 years ago when you were moving through the ranks. And as I thought about this, and Dan and I shot the first part of the podcast, I kept thinking about your story, man. And, you at CPNY before the acquisition, were in one mindset, and then you slipped into another, and then you got back into growth. And I'm asking you if you would just even if you want to take 3 to 5 minutes, just share that with us to help other leaders understand like how you went through that transition from a growth to fixed to growth mindset, and then some of the positive and negative things that it did in the culture, if you're willing.
Yeah, so when JJ Rooms and Jeremy Boswell recruited me to come to CPNY, they were in the middle of what they call Vision 2020 plan, and it was a growth strategy. and they had already almost doubled in size whenever I came on in 2017. And I did what any good operation leader would do in my first 90 days. I got my bearing and I looked at the map and what was happening, and they were just starting the business plan. And so I was reviewing the business plan that I didn't make, but was going to be responsible for executing. And I remember telling JJ, this is the most well-written piece of fiction I've ever read in my life. And what it was they had experienced this growth and they didn't realize that we had developed a sort of a constrained system, and it was getting ready to catch up with us. Quite simply, what had happened is the wave of selling and doing had caught up with them, and they hadn't scaled to the next step. And so we came in, and true enough, the first year's business plan was well-written fiction. And we went back into the basic blocking and tackling of business, getting some systems right, getting things moving in the right direction, but more importantly, focusing on leadership development, training, and really communication with the team. And so over the course of the next couple of years, we begin to see rapid growth again and an improvement from that cycle. And 2020 happened, and we were one of the fortunate companies in 2020. You hear people go, we lost our rear in 2020, and you hear people have the best year ever. Well, we were in the best year ever. We had our best year ever in 2020, but we had a lot of really challenging, hard things happen. Lost a founder, lost a executive leader, and it kind of brought us to a point where the board was looking at the transition plan and looking at what needed to happen, and decided to go to market and just look at market, because we were at a point where we had nearly achieved the 2020 plan, and we weren't at a spot where we were going to really be able to deal with the aging leaders the way that needed to be done and help the existing staff have the best way forward. That brought us to the M&A process, which is, if you've ever done it, it's a grueling thing. You are in secret going about something for confidentiality and NDA reasons, but you're also still trying to run a business while you're trying to tell someone about all of your business. And so we got through all of that, and we got to a point where we identified what we believed was the best way forward, which was STV, because it was the best way forward. I believe we wanted STV as bad as STV wanted us, and that's something that we tried really hard to anchor. If you remember, we had the leadership boot camp the day before the sale was finalized at Rough Creek, and we talked through that. We've got to continue on this trajectory. We've got to see this opportunity. We've got to grow, and we've got to do all the right things. And it's amazing how quickly you can move from growth mindset to, no, guys, we've really got to be in growth mindset, to the earnout year, which was really a proving ourselves, getting to know. It was a good thing, and we did well, but somewhere in that earnout, we went from a growth mindset to a fixed mindset again about it being the numbers, and about it being the process, and about it being connecting all the dots. And it wasn't anything STV did to us. It was our own leadership and our own egos and our own insecurities at different times all across the board. And it took a really difficult year last year for us to move into business plan this year and take a mindset of, we've got to get back to the things that are important, which is, optimism, it's integrity, it's partnership, it's connecting with our team. We've got to get back to that being our primary focus, and focus on our clients, and focus inwardly on our team, and getting them the resources they need. And in doing so, we've begun to kind of turn from what was we had a great earnout year and a less than spectacular year last year in dealing with some adversity, to being at a point right now where we have hit our sales goal for the year already, and we're only 2 quarters into our fiscal year. So we were able to turn the tide again by moving back to that mindset of, we've never done this before. this way. So now we've got to grow our leadership, grow our reach, and reach a little bit differently. And everyone on the leadership team for the region kind of went through their own arc with that. Everybody's at a different spot, but it all came down to we started focusing on the wrong things for the right reasons, but it got us sideways.
Okay, that's a really important point there, Shane. So just for other people who might be in that position, what are some of the wrong things that you were overly focused on for the right reason? Just for a couple examples.
So this is the bane of executive and CPNY. The bane of executive and engineering leaders' minds, in my opinion, and it's KPIs, right? KPI is like blood pressure. It's a number. It tells you something about yourself. I mean, I can go into the doctor and my blood pressure can be up, and it can be a lot of reasons. It can be salty food. It can be I'm dehydrated, or it can be I have high blood pressure. And the reality of it is KPIs are important. It's important. It's an important way to communicate, but there's always a story underneath the KPI. Why are the sales numbers down? Is it that you don't have a strategy? Is it that you've lost a marketing advantage? Or is it because the work's not there and you overprojected because you knew the numbers had to go up and you made something up instead of talking about realistically there being a hard thing ahead? And nothing about what STV was asking us to do was out of the ordinary in that regard. They were asking us to pay attention to the business. And we were paying attention to the business. And we were dealing with some challenges. We had a project, $8 million project that just walked out the door on us in December. Now it came back a year later, but we weren't planning on an $8 million hole in our business plan. We backfilled about $3.5 million of that $8 million hole, but it still was an $8 million hole. And so learning how to focus on that at a larger scale as you're integrating and learning a new language and learning how to connect with someone, it requires you to step back and be honest about it and talk about it plainly, and then look for solutions and move on to the next thing. And a lot of times what executives do is they start looking at KPIs, and then they start demanding really dumb things down line instead of going down line and going, okay, here's the problem we have, and how do we solve it now? What are the directions forward? And so what we saw this year in our business plan shift as we walked through it again and sort of reoriented ourselves to what we reoriented ourselves to at boot camp in 2001 is that a lot of times it's our own head trash that's in the way of solving the problem. And if you go to the organization and you talk to people honestly about where things are at and say, here's what we're trying to get to, here's what we're trying to solve. Now, how do you help in that? What do you see that we're not seeing? The organization responds because they want to be inspired. And that's natural to our DNA. That's the way we operated as a company.
Yeah.
And it's the way we are operating as a company. It's just we forgot it in our own head trash and insecurity.
Yeah, no, man, the way that whole story is so helpful because we see this all the time. And when you're smack dab in the middle of it, it's really hard to recognize. But I love how you said that. I'm going to try to summarize it. So if I butcher it, stop me and correct me. But I feel like what you were saying is, hey, before the acquisition, we were really focused on the potential of people and communities and how we can help those people and those communities get to the next level. We went through this acquisition phase and we started overly focused on numbers. And if I had to, put a Texas twist to it, is numbers don't make numbers better. So just focusing on numbers doesn't make the numbers better. And it kind of took your focus off of the people and off of the communities. And in turn, those numbers started going the wrong direction. And then you got back on track with focusing on people and communities and their potential. And it sounds like your culture started going the right direction, and then in turn your numbers started going the right direction. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment of the whole thing. And to tie it back to my blood pressure analogy, staring at your blood pressure reading and hoping it gets better, and yelling at your blood pressure reading and hoping it gets better isn't going to help your blood pressure reading. It's probably going to take your blood pressure up. The same is true of KPIs. We're in a people business. Now that's really comfortable for folks in the AEC space. We're in a people business, and people drive our business. And so if you want to see an improved number, the carrot works way better than the stick every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me if you disagree with this, but I've been saying this a lot lately. I'm gonna get some shirts made. But what people I think are slowly starting to understand in 2024, we are an emotional society. We're an emotional work environment, right? We're an emotional workforce. We need to be emotionally connected to what we do. And what I'm trying to help people understand is culture trumps productivity, because culture drives productivity. And at the end of the day, we all want to achieve our dreams and make the paychecks that we want to make, inside the organization at any level. We all want that. But at the end of the day, if you just focus on the paycheck, it doesn't help. It's the focusing on and loving the people and the culture. And this is a great example of that. I appreciate you saying that. So I'm going to ask you a couple of an easy and a hard question. I'm going to start with the hard one first. So, two questions. Question one is when you think back during that era of when you think back on that era of when you slipped into that fixed mindset and overly focused on the numbers, is there a memory or a regret that you have? And then the flip side of that, to make it fun, is now that you're back in this growth mindset mentality, have you seen anything or have you witnessed something that's happening with some of your folks that's just rewarding?
Personally, I said as we started into business plan this year, we were 6 months late on the adjustment, and I regret not getting to the point where I said we've got to change our focus faster. A lot of times you coach, you talk through some things, you hope people are going to get it, you hope you can project calm, and we were 6 months too late. If we'd have talked about it 6 months sooner, then we'd have had an easier trajectory to the business cycle recovery. And that's the reality of business is everything is cyclical. You run through waves, it's a sine wave. You run through waves of improvement, and then you peak. And if you don't challenge yourself and reinvest, then you move into decline, and then you fight, and you're chasing that peak. And the goal of leaders is to recognize when you're hitting that peak and you've mastered something, or you're becoming stagnant, and challenge the team to do something different. And we ran so hard at earnout and proving ourselves that we forgot ourselves, and STV didn't do that to us. We did that to ourselves, and it took us 6 months too long to recognize it. From that trough of recovery, when we could have short circuited it faster. That's my regret. Is not, I've seen the movie before. I knew it was happening when it happens, but all leaders have head trash, and I had head trash. The whole team had head trash at different times about, well, what does this mean? Well, what do I do now? Well, what's next? And there was no reason for that other than to just continue to serve our team and serve clients, and the rest will take care of itself. But you get weird in the new, and it messes things up. I'm convinced nobody starts an M&A going, this thing's going to end in a divorce sloppy mess, right? I don't know why engineers are this way. We're applied scientists in everything but social science, and the reality of any merger, acquisition, or integration you do is it's a people change management exercise, and the leaders that can kind of kill the voice in their head that's telling them stupid stuff and feeding their insecurity, and can just shut up and lead and do the next thing, end up being the people that pioneer their way through it. So but you'd think that someone, or maybe I need to write a book or something, you'd think someone would just say, shut up and do something and stop worrying. But that's people's own headspace issue, and you end up in this liminal space. One thing I remember very clearly from the very beginning, our CEO Greg Kelly, we had our first strategy meeting in the first month, and he sat down and he challenged us. There is no we and they. There is no us and them. There is just we. All right. That's a very strong message right out of the gate. We are one team. We will figure it out together. That came from the top cop, man. And we still struggle with that because it's change management. And so you hang on so heavy to what was that you can't let go of and experience the good things that are new. That by
Yeah.
definition is fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And
Yeah.
so my only regret in slipping back into that fixed mindset is that I didn't recognize this cycle and interrupt it sooner.
Yeah. So, and as we were working through all that with you, the thing that I remember bugging you the most, and I mean a lot, I remember how significantly it bugged you. I think it still does today. Is you lost some people in that process, and it was ripping you up, man. Like I remember talking to you at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. A couple of times we were late, right, in the evening, just because you were torn up. And I hope people hearing this, can prevent some of that, because that's not easy.
Yeah, and that's if you look at it, could we have done a better job of hanging on to some of those? Did some of them need to go? You fight that whole deal of it may not be for everyone. There's still a handful of people that I look at and I go, man, if you could have just hung on for 6 more months, this is the opportunity that was there. But everybody's fighting their own internal battle in it. And even though I put a stat, I had it on a sticky note on my computer screen for a while, and it was how many people we had originally, and it was what the industry norm was for turnover in an acquisition. And I'd set a personal goal that I was going to be half of that. And whenever I crossed over the halfway part, it really frustrated me because I do believe that we lost some folks along the way. That if they just could have let go of what was and got excited about what was going to be, we would have been better for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, last question. When you think specifically about the turn that you've made, and you're now back focused on people's potential and the potential of some of the markets and how you have communities, is there anything that someone's done or you've watched someone do that has just inspired you, or something that you're really proud of with this growth mindset
Oh,
back in place?
yeah. So one of the things that we did, I could tell a ton of stories, but one of the things that we did last year is we sent a group of folks that were going to be on the front lines of some of the administrative changes and everything to boot camp. And one of the folks that went to that boot camp was Ellen Carpenter. And I
Oh,
personally
yeah.
believe that she could be like a poster child for
Yes.
change management and a shift in mindset. She went to boot camp and came back and went, I get it. I understand now. And I'm seeing her run out in front of a lot of issues in order to prevent things for the team that could be a frustration, of helping them understand how to connect and and we used to do it this way and now we do it this way and it's better because of this. And so seeing her step up and lead and lead at a very high level as the business administrator for the region has been spectacular in that shift.
Mhm.
We have a vanguard team that we've started this last year as a way of recovering, of getting the total message and getting the actual information down a level down into the organization. What's been great about that team is they're able to then bring back feedback. One of when we sent out the Net Promoter Score survey, a young EIT came to one of the Vanguard leaders and came with an idea on how we could better engage folks. We've seen a small group of people that have stepped up and led a change in how we're doing real estate and helping people understand how our new office spaces are designed and going to work and use. And so it's been great to see younger leaders step up and say, okay, I'll help carry the ball now. I'll help carry the ball. And it's been a pretty quick turn that some of that's happened. It's happened really in the last 4 to 6 months, but we're seeing it pay off in other areas. I'm seeing leaders win big contracts that they've never won before. It's their first big major contract. I've seen colleagues get together and pitch in money to buy them a fancy bottle of whiskey or tequila to celebrate their big win, are having dinners to memorialize promotions. So I've seen some really cool grassroots things start to pop up as you show up and communicate hard things to your team. Your team starts willing to, instead of griping about it, they grab a hold of how they can help move forward. I followed and read a lot of John Maxwell, and one of my favorite quotes about John Maxwell is the pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects the wind to change, the leader adjusts the sails. And I feel like when we changed our mindset, you saw leadership at different levels, and our vision as a company for leadership being local has led us to an organization structure, but also a leadership structure where we're really challenging folks to step up and lead. If you see something that needs to change, raise your hand and get help and partner to make it better. And so I think that's probably one of the most rewarding things in the last 6 months. Are all the KPIs back to where they need to be? Is our blood pressure still a little high? Yeah. But is the trajectory changed? Are we out of the slide and in a trough and an upward projection? Yes. And it happens when leaders focus inward correctly.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when you think about would I buy stock in STV right now, especially in TMR, the answer would be absolutely yes. And it's not just because your pipeline looks good. It's because your leadership capacity is being multiplied right now. You and JJ both have specifically told us that, to the point of making my team borderline nervous, is we have to multiply the number of people who are capable of effectively leading and inspiring teams. And, you know, to use your point, you guys you're on the verge of multiplying that 3 or 4 fold. And we have way more people who are in line getting, you know, prepared and equipped to be able to do that in their own communities. And I think that whole STV, you know, philosophy of staying local and creating local leadership, no, that's really, really working out. So, hey, man, we've gone way longer than go ahead.
I'm meeting with a group of leaders. I'm meeting with a group of leaders tomorrow, and I am telling them that my expectation is in the next 30 days, you will hire your replacement.
Love it. Not because we're firing you. No, I'm joking. I'm only joking. No, I agree. I think it's a great point. Great point. Well, man, I sure hope people who are in your shoes, which we talk to a lot, are able to truly hear your heart and hear your situation and take away some wins for them to implement on their journey, just like you did yours. And I really appreciate your transparency and your courage to talk that out and to live it out with your team. So if you're in Shane's shoes, 2 guys sitting here, we know what you're going through, and it is not easy. And sometimes you just flat out feel alone. Don't feel alone. The truth is when you're trying to make a turn, sometimes you're out in front and it does feel alone, but you're not. If there's something that we can do, even if it's just talk through a conversation, I guarantee you Shane would talk to you. People here talk to you. Don't feel alone, because sometimes leading does feel that way, especially when you're going first. It's going to take courage. Lead on, because they certainly need you.